Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. I have to concede that I find it utterly bizarre that we have found ourselves in this situation today. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to traverse what's happened over the last couple of weeks, because I would not want any member of the public to be left with any confusion that it was always within the power of the Prime Minister, John Key, to bring about the resolution that we are debating now. Because, in fact, we are only debating it because the government has finally put it forward as a bill, something they could have done 2 weeks ago if they had chosen to do that. So here is my first question. Why did the government not introduce this bill immediately after the Cabinet meeting, the Cabinet post-press meeting, where the Prime Minister said it was something that they could support? Why did the government not introduce this bill then? That's a genuine question that we would like to ask. Why then did John Key say that he wanted cross-party agreement in order to introduce a fifth option? Minus, I have to say, cross-party agreement, but minus New Zealand First. So apparently it was okay if one party didn't agree, but it wasn't okay if anyone else did. And what was Labor's response? What was Labor's response? We said, fine. We said, fine. Give New Zealanders that extra option. There's a groundswell pushing for it. Let's do it. But while we're there, why don't we also give that huge number of New Zealanders who want to be asked first if they want change, why don't we give them that chance too?
That's democracy.
And so, in order to be constructive, we drafted a bill that would do that. Both things. It would add a fifth option and it would put in a yes-no question, and we tabled it in Parliament. Now, it would have been very easy for the government at that point to say, oh, I see there is agreement from Labor on the fifth option. We don't agree on the yes-no question, so we won't vote for that, but we'll vote for the red peak option. They could have done that. What did they do? They denied leave for that bill to be debated. They said no. Fine, we said. Well, why don't we have a meeting and sit down and constructively discuss whether we can make progress on this? No preconditions. We wrote it down in a letter to John Key. Let's talk about this. No preconditions. What did the Prime Minister say? No. We were so exasperated at that point by the games that the Prime Minister seemed to be playing that we wrote to him and said, fine, if you don't want to change the law as we've suggested and as you suggested, then why don't you send it back to the flag consideration panel to trade an option? We'll support you to do that. What did he say? No.
Politics.
So do not tell me that Labor has not tried to be constructive in this debate. We have tried multiple times to engage the National Party and Prime Minister on this issue, and we have been denied at every opportunity. That has been enormously frustrating. Now, why then no preconditions? I want to restate that. None whatsoever. So let's be absolutely clear. The debate we are having today in this House, the Prime Minister could have instigated a week ago. He chose not to. He never, ever needed permission from any party to put this bill before the House. And what better proof is there of that than the fact that the entire flag referendum bill, which set out this whole process, was passed without Labor's support. He passed the flag referendum bill in the beginning without Labor's support, and yet suddenly, to make an amendment to it, he then claimed he needed us. Now, I'm not sure if John Key's suddenly forgotten, but he does still sadly hold a majority in this House. He could have done anything he wanted. Oddly, we actually supported him to make this change, and he still said he wasn't going to do it. Now, if anyone else there is as confused as I am, it's for good reason, because ultimately, you can't explain political game playing, and yet that's what we've seen. This has been a game. Now, the reason that Labor's been so disappointed in that is because ultimately we've been driven by one factor: give New Zealanders a say, a proper say. Now, let me be absolutely clear. From the very beginning, I supported having a debate about the flag. I wanted to hear what New Zealanders thought about one of our national symbols. I wanted a debate about who we are as New Zealanders, how we wanted to display ourselves to the world, where we were going. I wouldn't have minded that debate being a part of a much more wider constitutional debate. That seemed to be a more appropriate order of things for me. The Prime Minister didn't want to do it that way, so be it. But that's what I hoped for. I also hoped we would have a debate that was done in such a way that it was fiscally prudent, that we kept in mind that in amongst this conversation we have some very demanding challenges to address, and that includes child poverty. So let's not be silly about the way we conduct this. So yes, I had a problem with $26 million being sent on it, a big problem. But the other thing that I wanted to see in this debate was it to be genuinely open. Now, I have a view, and my view was coloured by the idea of having change. But am I scared to ask New Zealanders the question first, do you want change? No. Because I genuinely believe that people should have a voice and have a say regardless of what I think. Does the Prime Minister think that? Clearly not. If he genuinely believed that he could convince people that change was the right thing to do, he would not have been afraid to ask the question, do you want change? Now, he put up the argument that you couldn't ask that question without putting the options. We agreed. In fact, we always argued at the first meeting he brought together of parliamentarians on this question, we always argued that the first ballot should be laid out like this. Do you want change, yes or no? If there were to be change, which flag options would you prefer? That's ballot 1. You get to decide whether you want change within the context of the options. Then we count it up. If 50% say no, regardless, I don't care what it looks like, I don't want change, you don't run round 2. If enough people say yes, round 2 runs, and it includes the top polling alternative, run off against the status quo. So if, for instance, you liked one option, but you weren't happy with any of the others, you get a second say in round 2. That was what Labor advocated. It is also an option that the Ministry of Justice put forward. Now, the Prime Minister keeps saying that he listened to the experts. The experts said this was a valid option. In fact, almost every party in this House argued for that layout of the referendum, and it was National who said no. It was National who did not want to ask yes or no. And I say, as someone who likes the design of Red Peak, I still want to ask people yes or no first. Yes, I want choice, but I want all New Zealanders to have choice. And that's always been the position of the Labour Party. So was it unfair, Mr. Speaker, that when the Prime Minister said, OK, let's open up the potential of a fifth option, was it unfair of us to say, yep, let's do it, but let's add something else? I don't think so. If the Prime Minister disagreed, he could do that. We still would have voted in favour of Red Peak being an option, which is exactly what we're doing today. What we saw instead was a game. And I'm disappointed that that happened, because ultimately, if we want a genuine debate that carries all New Zealanders, surely we should be inclusive of all of their views. So the fact that we've come to this point today demonstrates to me that we have a Prime Minister that didn't think about choice, but instead sat back in his office a week ago and faced the genuine reality that he might have no change in flag. And he sat there and decided that Red Peak at least represented change. So he is hedging his bets. I wish it wasn't so cynical, but I think that's exactly what's happened. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed that it happened this way. Yes, I supported Red Peak. Labor supported choice from the very, very beginning. And we've done it, I think, in the right way by New Zealanders. We wanted everyone to have choice. And that continues to be our position today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.